Why is Erase so damn good? Like, really, episode 5, it's bad enough that Satoru could not save Kayo, but now you want to go after Anri is messed up. But this episode, man, it really got to me because Anri, her character got so much development, and obviously there is no doubt that she is definitely a true friend and comrade, to Satoru, because we saw that scumbag manager not going to like sell him out once, but like twice in the episode, and that guy is a piece of crap. I was just so happy when Anri like punched him right in the nose, and to me, I would think, I hope she broke it because that guy, he definitely had it coming. But this episode, it started off now, like in the past, and we see now that like Kayo, of course, she never came to school. And we see now that the story that the press and the teachers were like going with, it was that, she had ran away from home and she was now living with her grandmother, and now we all knew that was a lie. And of course, Satoru knew the truth because he already, lived through this once. And so we see now that when when school got out that day, we see him now running to her house, and we see him now banging on the door, and of course nobody answered it. And we see that, once again he had went to that shed because it seemed that it was open some, but when he opened it, there was like, nobody in there. And so now we see by the shed there were like these fresh footprints because it had snowed the previous night. So obviously someone that came there, after all that snow was like coming down. And so we see now that when Satoru had left, we have, Kayo's father, looking at him, and we see that, and we see Kayo's mother, she was like crawled him into a ball, and we see Kayo on the ground, like so beat up and so bruised, and obviously, she was dead. So that right there, that, like Kayo's murder or death, it was not due to the first kidnapper. It was actually due to her mother's. And that right there, that really should like breaks my heart because Satoru, he was like fighting so hard to change the future, and to see, all those efforts end up in vain, man. Like that right there. I just felt so bad for the guy. And so we see that like after that, Satoru actually stayed home for like 2 days, and we see that one day we have one of Satoru's mother's like old co-workers. He actually he actually worked for the I'm guessing news department, or this guy had a lot of influence when it came to like news on TV. And so we see now that like they were like going to change stuff around, so because that way it would not actually affect these kids, and that way they would not remember something so sad. And that was when they started this whole running away and living with their grandmother news. But obviously the adults here, like the cops and the ones who definitely knew something about Kayo, they definitely knew something fishy was like going on, because we see at one point that Kayo's mother, she was like brought in because right now she's like a major suspect. And so we see that, while they were investigating her, another child was like kidnapped as well. And that was when he also put out that whole, running away, going to live with with their grandparents' story. And so we see now that, this right here, was like during a time that like something called a girls festival was like going on. And we see now that, one day we have Kenya and Satoru, they were like walking together because now with like another child, disappearing or otherwise, like being killed, they were like, no kid should be, walking around alone, either have a guardian, or I'm guessing, like walking with friends, in a pair or a group. That right there, could also, lower the chance of you getting kidnapped. So that right there was also, coming into effect. And we see now that the true story of these, disappearances, they were like, normally run, during the early morning or at night, where, kids are at school or asleep, and that way the adults here, they can see what's going on, and obviously, they'll be, kept in a loop. But we see now Kenya, like I said, this boy, he's like, Kenya's character, he always been, a little too smart for his own good, because he also heard about how that one girl, she had, ran away from home and went to live with her grandparents as well. And Kenya was not buying that, because even he was like, he believed that, that girl was possibly abducted and probably killed. And so we see, or to me, I do wonder, how in the world can Kenya think of like something like this, because we see now that, all these kids, they were definitely worried about Kayo, and like there was like one child, and we have no idea who she is, but apparently this child, or I do believe it was a boy who said it, like, Now, right now, I don't recall whether or not it was a boy or a girl said this, but there was like one child who heard rumors about, Kayo's mother abusing her, and so that right there was also getting, passed around, kind of at least. But we see that when Satoru was like walking home one day, he actually, was like walking to where Kayo lived, and we see now, Kayo's mother throwing out the trash, and she had this like creepy smell on her face. And so we see that when Satoru, had went to the trash, to look in it, I thought maybe we might see Kayo's body in it, but to me that right there would just be, a little too much. But it was actually the knitted gloves that Kayo was like going to give Satoru as a birthday present. And when I saw that, you definitely know, Kayo was like definitely gone. And that right there definitely, got to Satoru. And we see him now running away, screaming at the top of his lungs. And now we see now he was like back in the present. Now here's where things get somewhat weird to me, because we all know that, Satoru has this gift of revival, but we see now that when he had went back to the present, he was like able to be, far away from the cops, even though we saw him, even though we saw these cops chasing him down, because we see now that, Satoru had blood on his hands, so obviously he already been in his apartment and touched his mother. So I do wonder, like, how in the world was it possible, when he came back, he was like that far from the cops, they were like able to hide, because obviously, they didn't see him, but at the same time, they were chasing him, like after he already been in his apartment. To me, that right there seemed kind of weird. Like maybe that right there, could have been, a little mistake. I'm not really sure, but the fact that he had blood on his hand and was like still that, and it's still, like far from his apartment, to me it seemed, like rather off. But we see obviously he could not go home, and so he had no choice but to like get away. And we see now that the only place he could like really hide, it was under this bridge. And so now the following day, obviously this guy is a wreck. He has all these little bumps and bruises on him. His clothes are all messed up, and we see that he really had no place to go, but he did go to like some kind of cafe, and we see that Satoru was like definitely exhausted. Not even a coffee was like really helping him at all. And so now he actually got this text from his manager, and so we see now that when Satoru had actually went to like when Satoru had went to go meet up with his manager, we see now that the manager, at first was like coming off as a good guy. He like, we see him, like giving Satoru food. They were like talking. This guy seems so freaking helpful. But when this guy, had like offered him beer, and we see that like he was out, and we see him leaving, Satoru actually turned on the TV, and that's when like they were like running a story on his mother, and of course, Satoru was like definitely the main suspect, by then. And so right now, when Satoru looks out his window, he sees the manager, now talking to the police. So obviously this right here was a setup. And because Satoru was like so naive, he actually fell for it. but luckily he was like able to get away and like dodge the cops. But we see that, Satoru, he is definitely not the most athletic guy. So when he had climbed over, climb over this little wall, we see him take a pretty like nasty tumble. He definitely wasn't hurt, but we see now that like his phone actually fell out of his pocket. And so right now we have Anri asking him, if he's stupid. And to me, that right there obviously would remind anyone of Kayo. And so we see now that, Anri was like, you got to turn off this phone because they can track it thanks to the GPS. But Anri, she was like so freaking helpful because we see now that like when Satoru, need a place to go, she actually brought him, to her, a current, living space. And that right there actually belonged to her uncle, who is her mom's brother. And we see now and we learn now that he lived there with his wife. But Anri will like stand there because that right there is where she can go, where she wants to, where she wants to go to school. And so right now, we have them talking, and Anri, she was like such a big help. And we see now that Anri, she actually dropped a major bombshell because we see that the last time, back in episode 1, Satoru actually left this book of all these crimes Satoru had left this book of all these crimes that had went down, and we see now that one of them were like bookmarked, and that right there was like Kayo's death. And so we see now that Anri said something that was definitely off to Satoru, where she died, during the Girl Festival, and that and in the true history, Kayo died, Kayo died before that because she had died when she was 10, but with like history changing and Kayo was like able to celebrate her birthday, we see now that crime had went down where she was died, or she was like, where her age of death was 11. And so now, Satoru knows that, the future, it can be changed. So if he can go back to the past, that right there will like give him another chance, to actually save her. And so now the following morning, we see that Anri, she definitely did not want to bring any suspicion to herself, because that right there, could like smoke out Satoru, and that right there was important, especially what happened in the at the end of the episode. But we see now that while she was like going by her normal routine, Satoru definitely was not going to stay there and do nothing. Because we see now that while Ari was like working, Satoru was like looking up stuff on his own. And so we see, that Anri, she had like, a very normal work day. And we see that when it was time for her to leave, we have the manager talking to some man, and we could not see his face. But to me, I definitely know who this guy is. And right now I want to say it's either the teacher who was Satoru's, her homeroom teacher, along with, Kayo and Ken and the rest of them, or maybe it's his mom, former co-worker, because obviously this killer is someone that she definitely knew, and that right there, could only leave him because he's the only male that we saw, that she knew in the past, and that's why we have not seen, this killer's face yet. But we see now that, while they were talking, Anri here, she was taking home a pizza, and we see now that, that right there definitely raised, a red flag to the manager and to of course the man he was talking to, even though this guy, we could not see, his expression, when Anri had left, this guy was like going to follow her. Because we see him watching her, and the manager, this guy is like so freaking weird. Because, even though, Anri is like 17 and immature, this guy had, blush on his face while talking about her. And so we see now that, when Anri was leaving, this guy, came after her and gave her something. It was like some kind of a promotion item. We have no idea exactly what it was, but when Anri was going home, Satoru was now pulling in, and then we have the manager pulling out his phone, getting ready to call the cops, and Anri actually found him and stopped him by, breaking his phone. And right now, this manager, he was making some BS excuse, saying that he was looking out for it, but Anri, had enough, and we see her now punching him one time, and that right there, made me so freaking happy, because this manager is a scumbag. And so right now she was if you really, want to look out for me, don't call the police. But obviously this guy cannot be trusted at all. And so now Satoru, can't go back there. And so now once again, him and Anri was under this bridge. And so Satoru was asking her why in the world do you want to believe me so much? And so we learned a little bit about, Anri's, history, about where her dad and her, when they went to a store, and apparently this guy was being accused of stealing a chocolate bar because it fell out of his pocket. And so right now her father did not want to admit it, and that right there, she blew up the cops were called. Her father actually got suspended from his job for 3 months. That right there, led to her mom and dad divorcing, and he left home. And this right here, and to me, it's still mind-boggling how a chocolate bar can cause all of this. But right now, Anri, she definitely does not want to doubt. She definitely doesn't want to doubt, someone close to her again, because obviously, she wants to believe in them. Just like how she believed in her dad, she wants to believe in Satoru that way. That's why she's always helping him. And so now we see that she was going to go home, get him some change of clothes, but we see now, someone has sent her a text, and that right there was from Satoru's, mom's phone. And obviously that right there was a killer, because, Satoru, he even knew that her phone and something else was gone. Oh, in her bag, I believe it was, something was gone when he had went back there, and obviously the killer had it, and somehow Anri was able to actually, realize that as well. And so we see that the reason why the killer, wanted her to stay ill, because he actually set the place on fire. And that right there, it's really extreme. But we see now that, at first, there was some smoke coming into the room, a little bit, but then when Anri, opened the door, that right there just overwhelmed her and made her pass out. And also this right here, was also showing the opening, and so that foreshadowing has been there for a while now. And so to me, I do hope that, Satoru can save Anri, but this right here also might be his trigger point that will allow him, to once again go back into the past and hopefully correct all of this. But this episode, man, it was just so freaking good from start to finish, especially that ending. I cannot wait to see what's in store for us, in episode 6. But as always, don't forget to and subscribe, because it really helps me out. And as always, you guys take it easy. I will see you all next time. So during my review, there was something that I forgot to bring up, and that was when Satoru was doing his own investigation. And so we see that, Satoru, he actually came across this 3-year-old case where another child was once again abducted. But shortly afterwards, the culprit, or so-called culprit, he was actually caught and brought in. But this guy was saying how he was innocent throughout the entire ordeal. And so obviously, that right there is very similar, it's just like how it was when it came to Yuki. So maybe this real killer is someone who has a lot of influence and can somehow frame people, which is why I'm thinking maybe it was his mother, former co-worker, because this guy definitely seemed to have some kind of strong influence. I still want to throw that out there, but like I said, right now, my suspects are the teacher and that co-workers, because hopefully, we'll find out, and maybe I might be right. You never know. But as always, let me know what you guys thought. I just want to put that out there.